photos in this were taken actually in our jail. Tattoos, majority of the graffiti. You have to know what tattoos or what affiliated with what gang. And I'll be going through all that as I go through this presentation.
So the devil riding the tricycle, is that like a preschool starter gang? Or?
Well, that was one of our Aryans thought he was being smart.
There are some tattoos I saw that I know for a fact. I know people who are not in gangs have them. Would that
No.
something else?
No.
Okay.
If we may look at it, if we think it's something suspected, in fact, I just had a case of an officer that had some tattoos that were very questionable, and we had to look into that. Turned out luckily.
Officer tattoo, didn't it?
No, no. I wish, that would have made it so much easier for me to work it.
That's a serious question though, because I never realized that, and I saw some guys literally, like, I know people from the fact are
Oh, I have no
not
doubt.
into games
I have
that
no
have
doubt.
those exact same tattoos, but maybe done a little nicer.
Spelmer.
Okay, well, I'm a member of the Tennessee Gang Investigators Association. I'm also a member of the American Corrections Association. I heard this the other day, and I had to chuckle about it because it is so true. You know, Ron White hit it right on the head. A lot of people talk themselves into jail. And luckily for me, to make my job doing the gang stuff a lot easier, they love to brag. So it makes it so much easier for me to do my job. This is a set of Bloods, 4-7 hour gang out of Northern Virginia. A community of fewer than 10,000 people in this community. He's dancing on top of a blue bandana. That's a disrespect to the Crips gang. And I am not going to torture y'all with that, what they call music there, any longer. Tennessee's gangs are no longer just graffiti-spraying juvenile delinquents. They are armed and dangerous criminal enterprises that recruit young people with the allure of fast money, street status, and a sense of belonging, even if the group they join may get them killed or sent to prison. These criminal gangs have become a huge part of and a major influence over popular culture. If you don't believe me, walk into Walmart. Look what they have right on the very front rows as you walk in the doors, especially around the clothing section. What's the first clothing you see when you walk in there usually? It's the baggy sports logo clothing. So they're targeting these guys. These guys are using these as their emblems. And you'll see this as we go through this PowerPoint. There are reminders that gangs are present everywhere we go. ROCIC TBI 2012 Gangs and Gang Members Report. This is the most current report that they've put out. So the numbers are going to be a couple years behind, but like I said, it's the most current thing they've given me to work with. 48 major gangs were identified in the 2009 Comprehensive Gang Report with 204 subsets. The Regional Organized Crime Information Center reports that 50 major gangs are now operating in Tennessee. While the number of major gangs has not changed greatly, the number of gang subsets have increased 275% to approximately 766 gang subsets. That's statewide.
Is that the state or is it the county?
Yeah.
That's statewide. Respondents estimate that there are approximately 25,000 gang members currently in Tennessee. Tennessee Department of Corrections statistics identified 5,116 gang members incarcerated as of October 31st, 2012. Adding the TDOC statistics to the estimated number of gang members in Tennessee, the number grows to over 30,000 gang members. Tennessee currently has 14,249 local and state law enforcement officers on the road. Round number. Based on 2012 data, it appears that gang members outnumber law enforcement officers by 2 to 1. And it's probably worse than that now. Gangs are like a virus, they just keep spreading. TCA codes, I handed out the primary code, the 4035-121. That's the criminal gang offenses, enhanced punishment procedure. As a gang officer, this law lays out exactly what I have to build in a file to be able to call somebody a criminal gang member. Or in the jail, it's a security threat group member. It lays out all the different variables that we use. It lays out sentencing procedures. It even, in the newest version, I think they edited it in 2013, they put up the new law. It even lays out certain crimes that we can use that are automatically considered gang crimes. Of course, with other things to support it. Typical gang structure. All gangs have identifiable levels of membership. These levels of membership indicate status within the gang and acts as the organizational structure. There are 6 levels of gang structure. So just like in a law enforcement agency or a military unit, they have a chain of command. The top level is their leadership. The leaders of a gang determine at what level of criminal activity the gang will function. Characteristics of the leaders are reflected in the day-to-day activities of the gang. The leader is all-powerful. They say a gang is only as violent as its most violent leader. Hardcore members. The hardcore gang members are usually the older gang members, the individuals who are culturally and criminally enmeshed in the gang and are at risk of being so for life. Most violent gang activity emanates from the hardcore gang members. Hardcore gang members usually make up about 10% of the gang membership. Number 3 is your associates. The associate gang member has usually made a personal commitment to the gang culture and is dedicated to achieving the level of recognition needed to attain hardcore status. So these guys are in it. They want it. They want it bad. Number 4 is your fringe members. The fringe gang member is still able to function outside of the gang structure and has not made a commitment to a life in the criminal gang culture. This type of member drifts in and out of the gang and seems to lack direction. So they're kind of at that point that, well, kind of want to be, but I'm not real sure at this point, but they could go the other direction. They're still kind of at a point where we might be able to save them with some good intervention. Wannabes are not actually gang members. They are youth who view the gang as an exciting place to be, a place where they could become somebody. Wannabes may emulate gang dress, graffiti, hand signs, and other gang cultural symbols. And they may associate with known gang members, but have not yet been accepted into the gang. To a corrections officer, to a law enforcement officer, this is the most dangerous gang member. He has the most to prove to the gang, and he will hurt an officer in a heartbeat.
A wannabe?
Mm-hmm. They're trying to prove themselves. You know, if you get involved in something, okay, I was a Boy Scout. When I first got in the scouting program, I was gung-ho. You know, I lived, I ate, I breathed scouts. It's the same thing with these guys. When they first get involved with it, they just about immerse themselves in that culture. And they have everything to prove to the gang because they're trying to gain that acceptance. And number 6 is your cliques. Very seldom is the gang at full strength. Exceptions to this, of course, would be times of conflict or possibly at social functions. What is most often seen as the gang is usually a clique from within the larger gang. The clique is a group of associate, fringe, and often wannabe gang members who gravitate around one or more of the hardcore gang members. This somewhat resembles a gang within a gang. So it could be considered a subset within the gang set. And this is so true. Tattoos are like a billboard for us. I see a tattoo, that's usually what starts my case file on a gang member. Probably 85% of gang files that I start are started because of tattoos. Now these are all the different points we have to use to identify a gang member. No one particular portion of this can be used to validate a gang member. TCA 4035-121 specifies we have to have 2 or more of these items in order to be able to validate somebody. We work on a 10-point system that typically requires 3 or more of these items. So we exceed what TCA code requires. Colors are an important representation of a gang. Each gang will choose a primary color or a combination of colors as the gang's main representation. Gang members have been known to commit extremely violent acts in order to protect their colors. They kill each other over their colors, over a perceived disrespect of their colors. Quite literally killing each other over a color. Colors are usually displayed in clothing, graffiti, accessories, bandanas or flags, anything they can use to identify themselves as that gang. Clothing worn by gangs has evolved tremendously over the years. Gang members prefer baggy pants, loose shirts, and backwards baseball caps. Anybody have any idea why they like the baggy pants and loose shirts?
Weapon concealment.
Hide your weapons, hide your dope, hide anything you don't want the police to see. Absolutely. Designer clothing is extremely popular with gangs to represent their affiliations. In fact, gangsters themselves have influenced designers so much that the designers cater to the gangs. As a result, gang members are wearing more designer and name brand clothing. And folks, we're not talking about cheap clothes here. We're talking $300-400 shirts, $600 pair of tennis shoes. I remember when I get a pair of Converse for $5 at Kmart. These guys went out spending $600-700 on a pair of Nikes or whatever else. Sports apparel is another way for gangs to show their affiliation and represent their gang's colors, symbols, or initials. Baseball caps, football jerseys, and other school, college, and professional team clothing can provide a wide range of gang representations.
This stuff is getting people killed.
Did everybody hear that?
Chicago Bulls jackets, full of blood, and the Crips that they wear a Dallas Cowboy jacket.
Society does not realize it, that it's just as deadly as selling that kid loaded 45.
It used to be simple. Bloods wore red, Crips wore blue. But now the evolution of gang identification has passed by Randy Graves, a former Los Angeles OG, original gangster.
That's these new jacks that's coming up and trying to make everything out of something. You know, they just looking for identity. They don't know what they're doing.
Dre is a New Jack gangster disciple who celebrates the advent of acronyms and logos.
They stand for things. So I know where it represents. Show who you are, be proud.
Fort Worth, Texas.
Colorado Rockies, Crips Rule, CR.
Shreveport, Louisiana.
Why North Carolina? Does the NC stand for something? Maybe with a Crip.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
The Miami Dolphins, the kids around here, the Vice Lords loved it, and they said it meant, may I admit my insanity.
Chilton, Wisconsin.
What if they didn't? We just have the same disciples that are going to street.
Dallas, Texas.
George, the Mexican Mafia, what insignia do you guys wear to identify yourselves with?
Or with the Michigan hat.
Do you root for Michigan? Like when you watch college football game?
Man, we don't do a football Michigan.
Being a fan is irrelevant. Gangs choose team names and logos and make them fit their needs. For instance, the Chicago Bulls.
Bloods usually live longer sucker.
The Cowboys.
It's Crips on west side, banging on your side.
Crips on wheels, banging on you Slavs, blasting on you Slavs.
Translation. Slavs is a put-down of Bloods by rival gangs.
The Saints, if you take the Saints jacket, take the S's on each end, the first S you have a Slav, the last S you have, they'll spell out Slavs, 8.
Sox is Xing out Slavs.
Sports apparel companies are also well represented. For example, Reebok. Respect each and every blood, okay?
What about Adidas?
There's one against us. All disciples is dead, Allah said.
They use All-Star, which is all Slavs turted rum.
And what about Nike? Here's Nike.
Niggers insane, killing E-Rickets.
What are E-Rickets?
That's what the Bloods call the Crips. It's a put-down name.
What magic really means to them is an acronym called Murder All Gangsters in Chicago. And therefore, it's a put-down. And gangs like to do this to develop special put-downs on each other.
The Blood gangs and the People Nation, the Chicago Aryan gang, they adhere to the 5-point star and the
rival gang, the Gangster Disciples, use the 6 foot stars.
Castro's hat, the blue representing the Folks Nation. The 5-pointed star is broken, which showing disrespect to the People's Nation, so this would be worn by our Folks gang member.
What happens when a guy comes in the neighborhood that's not a Mexican Mafia guy? He might have a different logo on.
Well, you just fronted, or what you claim, who you down with, and if you ain't down with us, or is in on the opposite gang, you just ask kick for me and getting shot.
These are symbols that get kids killed. They mean something so special to these children that they're willing to die for them.
So they'll take anything they can, particularly the sports team's logos, and twist it to meet their needs. Symbols are very common among gangs. Their use and worship is nearly ritualistic at times. Symbols contribute to both the gang's unique identity and its uniformity amongst members. Tattoos will normally display the gang's colors, symbols, initials, or name. Gangs have begun using branding to show a more hardcore allegiance to the gang. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to belong to a group where I got to get branded to be a member. That hurts. It's very painful. So that's why it's showing a more hardcore allegiance. We had a kid come in a couple years ago, had a great big swastika branded on his arm. That would put me in the hospital. I mean, we're talking a swastika like this on the boy's arm. Grooming. Dyeing one's hair a certain color, shaving notches in one's eyebrows, and certain types of beards can be an indication of gang affiliation. In this case, the photo on the right-hand side, he's a skinhead. He's proudly advertising that on his stomach. The guy on the left-hand side, he's MS-13. You notice he has 1 notch in the right eyebrow, 3 in the left eyebrow, denoting the 13. The numbers in numeric codes, the use of numbers to signify letters. Certain number combinations can be an indicator of gang affiliation. 2, 12, 15, 15, 4, for example, is blood. 7, 4 is GD or gangster disciple. Hispanic gangs will use the number 13 for the letter M. MS-13 and Sureños use this as a sign of respect towards the Mexican Mafia or La M. Gangs such as the Vice Lords, Latin Kings, and Gangster Disciples use the numbers 5 and 6 as a sign of affiliation with the Folk and People Nations. This is out of Chicago. Numbers are heavily used in graffiti as a means of identifying who did the graffiti. So to break this down short and simple for you, there's your basic code. 1 through 26 down the left column, A through Z down the right column, and you can decode probably about 50% of what you see in gang graffiti. Then we get the codes like this. This one's actually fairly simple. It's pretty straightforward. It would take us a little while to work on this to decode it because of some of the symbols, but we could decode it. It wouldn't take an awful long time. There's 2 of us left in the jail that are actually certified to decode these coded letters. And I've actually had some that we found that have taken weeks of working on them as we had time to be able to break the codes. But we haven't found one yet. We haven't been able to break. Hand signs have been used by military and law enforcement personnel for centuries. Unfortunately, they're also very common among gang members. Do you have any former military here? Fire team movements, hand signs, right? Chief, SWAT team, hand signs. When you don't want to be heard, you want you guys to see you. You use a hand sign. Gangs are doing the very same thing. Hand signs are different from gang to gang. One gang may not understand what is being said by a rival gang member flashing his or her hand signs. A hand sign is usually a one-dimensional hand movement used to show the gang's symbol or letter. Stacking is a series of hand signs used to convey a message. This is also known as G-stacking. And I used to have a really good video on G-stacking, but I can't find it, otherwise I would have put it in here tonight. Many gangs are studying the American Sign Language to develop their hand signs. There's a downside to this. South Central Los Angeles, I believe it was 5 years ago, a man and his son were in a McDonald's eating their lunch, The son was hearing impaired, couldn't speak. They were communicating through the use of sign language. The gangster walks in, sees him signing, shot and killed both of them. Thought they were rival gang members. He's now sitting on California's death row. Purpose of gang graffiti is to create a sense of intimidation and fear within a neighborhood or in a facility. Gang members use graffiti to mark territory or turf, declare their allegiance to the gang, advertise a gang status or power, to make threats, and to challenge rivals. All of the proceeding can contain identifiers that might point to a person being a member of a security threat group or a criminal gang. No single sign can be used by itself to determine gang affiliation. You must look at the totality of all the signs. So when we sit down with these inmates, we get somebody we suspect or has admitted they're a gang member, we're not going to take just their admission or the fact that they're wearing tattoos. We're going to look for a lot of other signs. We even look at social networking. I'll go dig in their Facebook pages. If I can get into Twitter accounts, anything I can find to be able to build up this evidence to show. That way when this inmate turns around and sues me in federal court, I've got a file about that thick, take to court, tell the judge, Your Honor, we got all this showing he is. And that keeps the chief and sheriff out of federal court. Keeps me out of federal court too. So far we've been, I'm not going to say we've been lucky. All of our policy has been proven through other facilities and federal courts. So I don't think we would ever have a problem. We adhere to the same policies as Knox County, as Tennessee Department of Corrections, Memphis, Shelby County. We've taken our policy from all these different agencies and put together what we believe is the best working policy for our facility. But all of the key points in our policies have been proven in federal court. We photograph tattoos. We interview the inmates. If they're willing to sign it, I get a signed admission from them. That way, 10 years down the line, he decides he wants to sue me. And Your Honor, he signed this piece of paper saying he's a gang member. So that usually will take care of that problem pretty quick. But we don't use any one particular sign. We talk to them. We'll get all the background data we can. We'll find out when they got involved with the gang, why they got involved with the gang, how long they've been involved with the gang, where they were at, who they ran with, what kind of crimes did they commit for the gang. And we'll document all this if they'll give it to us. These are just some examples of some of the stuff we found in the jail. This is Soldier Boy Love, which is our local Athens Park gang. Once again, Athens Park Bloods. Athens Park Bloods, the original gang formed in South Central Los Angeles on Athens Park Boulevard between 126th and 127th Streets. Our local set claims 126. This is a roll call that we found drawn on the cell wall one day. That list going down the center of the A out the bottom is a list of everybody in the set by their street name. Gallatin PD spent about 2 weeks working on this to try to identify everybody on the list. It's called a crab killer or CK, a Crip killer. It's drawn by our Bloods. It's a derogatory towards the Crips. Once again, this is derogatory to the Crips. If you notice, it's got a K in the middle of the C. The R is inverted, and it's got a 6-point star over the I. These are all blood indicators, or disrespect indicators towards the Crips. The bottom left is Gangster Disciples. 21519 is BOS, or Brothers of the Struggle, which originally was the Gangster Disciple prison arm. Top or the right-hand photo is Eastside Pyrus, or another term for Bloods. Top left is United Blood Nation. UBN formed originally out of George Moken Detention Center in New York back in the 70s. And it just kind of spread like a virus all over the East Coast ever since. Top right is Eastside Pyrus. Bottom left is Crazy White Boys. And the bottom right, we really can't determine who did that without all the other graffiti that's on that door. Just because it says MOB and has a 6-point star doesn't give us an indicator. There are too many different meanings for MOB. most of which I can't repeat in public. Okay, these are just some real short profiles of some of the gangs we've dealt with in our jail. The Bloods, their typical colors are red, black, tan, pink, or green. And I have yet to find somebody in pink that could intimidate me like they like to do. The primary color we see around here is red. Clothing brands they like: Fubu, Echo, Nike. Sports team logos: Chicago Bulls. I'm not going to go into the music stars with y'all because these are crazy. I actually have a book that details a lot of this stuff. Actually, I have several books that detail a lot of this stuff. We can sit here and go through this all day long and never cover all of it. Damu is Swahili for bloodline. That's what they like to call each other, is Damu. And those are just some of the symbols they use on the bottom there. And the pit bull, you'll see here in a few minutes, we've got a young man running around with a great big pit bull tattoo right here. And I'll tell you a story about him. 212, 15, 15, 4, once again, this goes back to your basic, I'm going to say basic cryptography. It's blood. MOB, in this case, we know it was member of Bloods simply because of the other graffiti that was on the same door. Athens Spark Bloods, 126. I just gave you their history. This is a young man that has a pit bull on his neck. So I was sitting down at my desk one day, doing my paperwork, minding my own business. Somebody said something to me. I turned around, and I got this pit bull staring me in the face. Of course, he got bandages all over his right leg where he had just been involved in a foot pursuit with a local agency and got bit. Canine got him, so he's not a happy camper. So we sat down and did a validation with him. He got the bleeding bee on his forehead. Soldier Boy, once again, that goes back to the roots of our local Athens Spark Bloods, which was Soldier Boy Love. That was the name of the original gang. And the cross on his arm really doesn't mean anything gang-wise. But the deduct on his right arm is what he goes by on the streets. So you can tell a pretty good story just off of his tattoos. I've actually got an Aryan in jail right now that if I was to sit here and lay out all of his photographs, I could tell you the story of his life just off of his tattoos.
Do they do their own tattoos?
A lot of them are jailhouse tattoos. A lot of them are. Whether it be done in our facility or another facility, it is a violation of jail policy to tattoo in jail. But to them, it's like a big cat and mouse game. They see it as it's their job to violate the rules and our job to catch them. Well, that's pretty much the truth of it. That's the long and the short of it. It's our job to catch them doing it, and our job to keep them from doing it. But this particular individual, if there was any question as to what he was off of these tattoos, when you look at the other side of his neck, West Side, Athens Park Bloods, 126. So it's a billboard. He's advertising. This is a photo of a bunch of our local Athens Park Bloods in one of the parks on the north side of Gallatin. We pulled this right off of Facebook, folks. Second from the left, in the red shirt with the white, whatever it is on there. He's actually currently serving a prison term for several shootings about 4 years ago in Gallatin.
How old is this kid?
He's probably in his mid-20s. Okay, this is a real good example of some of the documents that we take out of jail. This is our local Athens Park Bloods again. They've got the 126 down the left side of the A, and the red bandana down the right side. 5-point crown on top of it. Then on the P, they're claiming LA South Central West Side. Then you got the B and the bleeding hearts. And then the 212, 15, 15, 4 on the bottom. Pretty obvious to me what it is. Some of our officers that aren't so well versed in it looked at it initially and says, I was a sergeant at the time, I said, Sarge, what do we have here? So I sat and explained it to him. And it's kind of like, gangs is kind of like, y'all ever notice when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see all the people driving that same model of car, but you never noticed before? Gangs is the same way. Once you learn what you're looking at, you know what to look for, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what you're going to see. I can't walk through Walmart without my wife wanting to take my head off with it. He's gaming. He's gaming. Oh, can't go down that aisle. He's next inmate. Yeah, she wants to take my head off.
You trained your way?
He said, put down. The ESP on the bottom right, that's called dog spot. That's fairly common with our local Bloods. And in the top right, he's got Pyru written on the back of his shirt. It's kind of hard to see, but this, we ended up taking disciplinary action on the inmate for vandalizing the shirt, charging for a shirt. Okay, this guy's, he really doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. He's in his early 20s. On the top, he's claiming East Side Pyru, but on his back, he's claiming United Blood Nation. And now, the last time this man came to jail, he was claiming African pride. So he just has not figured out what he wants to be when he grows up.
What does the Westmoreland mean?
That's actually his name. Once again, this is a derogatory to the Crips from our Bloods. You see the crowd over there, CK, Crip Killer. Laugh now, cry later. You see that on a lot of different gang members. It's not specific to any particular gang. And we like to ask our gang members what this means to them when we find it. And we ask them about all their tattoos. We want to know what the tattoos mean to them. Because that goes a long way towards our validations. In this case, probably 95% of the inmates I've spoken to have told me this means when they're on the street, they're doing their dope, they're making their money, they're getting their women, and that's terming it politely. They're laughing. When they end up in the hospital, the prison, or the morgue is when they're crying. And that's what that means to most gang members who are wearing it. Crips, colors, blue, purple, and orange. Clothing brands, British Knights, K-Swiss. Sports team logos, Colorado Rockies, Los Angeles Dodgers. So much for watching Dodgers baseball anymore. Yankees, North Carolina State, which was I had to quit watching North Carolina State basketball. All right, this is a 5 Deuce Hoover Crip. He's got the 5 and the 2 tattooed on his shoulders in flames. This particular inmate was kind enough to tattoo his street name on his wrist for me. Made it easy for me to identify him. And then he was wearing the Crips signature blue and black high tops when he came to jail. This is another 5 Deuce Hoover Crip, came to us as a prisoner transport out of Robertson County several years ago. He's got the 5 Deuce Crip crazy on the left side of his chest. And if you can't read it on his arms, it says Hoover Gangster, or Hoover Gangsta. On his back, does anybody see anything other than the 5-2 on his arms that might indicate to us that this man's a gang member?
It's like a toaster.
Do what?
The snuffleupagus on his right shoulder.
No, that's actually a clown.
Is that a clown?
Bad representation of a clown. Okay, now do you see anything there that might indicate he's a gang member?
Does he got a heart in his hand?
No, look at the dice. Which spots are showing?
Oh.
Little details. We have to look for little details like this. In this particular case, he's showing the 5 spot and the 2 spot on the dice. 5 Deuce. It's a rolling 60s Crip. That was the only indicator he had. By the time we were done with him, validating him, we had a 2-inch thick file on him. Because he would not stop talking when we started interviewing him. I had to translate about a stack like that of notes into a 2-inch thick file. Gangster Disciples, colors, blue, black, silver, and white. They live with Folk Nation identifiers. Now, Folk and People Nation came out of Chicago. You can think of the Folk and the People Nations as 2 umbrella organizations, 2 rival umbrella organizations. Folk Nation has the Gangster Disciples and a whole bunch of other gangs. People Nation, I believe, has the Vice Lords and a whole bunch of other smaller gangs. And they act as an umbrella organization to bind these gangs together to a point. Their identifying colors are blue, black, silver, and white. In Gallatin, Sumner County, we've seen blue and black typically. Folk Nation identifiers, sports team logo, Georgetown Hoyas. And when we say they represent to the right, that means typically if they're a hardcore gang member, they're only going to throw their hand signs with their right hand. Their tattoos will typically be to the right side of their body. If they're throwing a flag, it's going to be out the right rear pocket. So that's what we mean by representing to the right. They may pull their belt buckle to the right. If they're wearing a ball cap, they may pull that brim of the hat to the right side. And these are just small indicators that we have to look for. All right, this is a graffiti found in the jail. 6 popping, 5 dropping. 6 is a folk nation identifier. 5 is a people nation identifier. Think that could be considered a threat to a people nation gang? Because translated, this means folk nation shooting, people nation dying. This is the mentality we're dealing with here, folks. This man was very unhappy with me when we found this. We ended up doing disciplinary on him and locking him down and searching his cell and taking all his tattoo materials away from him. But he was a gangster disciple. These were the only indicators he had. And we just stumbled over this. He happened to be brought down to my desk for something one day. I asked, why are you still scabbing up from tattoos? You've been in jail long enough, you shouldn't be scabbing. It ended up being infected. We had to have him medically treated. So while he's being medically treated, my gang officers were up searching his cell, getting all his tattoo materials. So he was really angry with me when he got back to his cell. It's a gangster disciple. Really nothing gang specific right there. But now he thinks he's super gangster. Got the G in the middle of his chest, and he's got the 6-point stars on either side of the G. When he went to prison, that's pretty much what he looked like. He wasn't too heavily tattooed. When he come back to us the next time, he was covered head to toe. And he had every indicator that the gangster disciples have ever advertised. Anybody know where the Pay Lake is in Gallatin? Warehouses across the street, across railroad tracks? That's where this was. They're claiming territory. Probably did it in the middle of the night when nobody was around. But they're claiming that territory. Okay, it's the gangster disciple. He's got the 7-4 on his shoulders and the BOS on his hand. The bad part about this particular inmate, I went to the gang conference last year. And we were watching a presentation being given by a Metro Nashville officer. And they're doing this on a 6-foot screen, mind you, for like 200 of us, 300 of us. And this young man's face pops up in the middle of that screen in the middle of his presentation. So he's documented in Nashville as well. This is another, this is actually a black gangster disciple. He's an old school gangster disciple. Somewhere up north, he's out of jail and gone now, but he's got some very good indicators. Folk life. He's got the heart with the bleeding G. And if you look off the bottom of the heart, you've got the devil's tail. Look at the ends of his wings. The tips are pitched. Both 6-point stars and the 7-4. Then on his right shoulder, he's got the 2 pitchforks facing upward and the BOS for Brothers of the Struggle. All excellent indicators. Vice Lords, they're a people nation gang. Their colors are red, gold, and black. Typically what we're going to see around here is either going to be red and black or gold and black. Sports team logos, University of Iowa, Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Penguins. Penguin, yeah, that's kind of intimidating. Does anybody remember the old MySpace social networking site? This is actually a commercially made background package for MySpace that I was able to download right off the internet. And that holds every one of the Vice Lords identifiers. The Playboy Bunny facing to the left, the 5-point star, the VL hand sign, crescent moon with a 5-point star in it. It's all there. They are a very dangerous and very violent gang. This particular inmate, this was the only identifier he had, was Vice Lord, and we thought it said Vice Lard at first. This one, he had the VL on his shoulders. The praying hands are not typically gang specific. You may see them occasionally on gang members. They try to use those to hide some of their gang affiliation. Luckily for us, it doesn't really work that well. The Vice Lords, somebody wasn't happy with the Vice Lords in this case. Okay, there's all your Vice Lord indicators. You got the top hat, The Playboy Bunny facing to the left, and I mean specifically facing to the left. The crescent moon, the cane, and the pyramid. Top right is United Vice Lords. Almighty Vice Lord Nation, AVLN. Sardinios, we get a few of these in, not a whole lot. I think in the time I've been validating gang members for jail, how long has it been now, Chief? About 7 years?
Probably.
I probably had 5 Sardinios. But now Gallatin's ate up with Sardinio and MS-13 graffitis. So their typical colors are blue and brown. Clothing brands are South Pole Clothing and Dickies. Sports team logos, the Dodgers. And any form of 13 that they can use to mutate into what they want it to mean. Anybody remember the old South Central Los Angeles Cholo with the shirt buttoned at the top, and loose all the way down, the Dickies pants? This is what the Sureños typically used to be. Now they're evolving over time and their clothing styles have changed. They're getting more towards the sports team clothing and such now. Mi Vida Loca, the 3 dots, typically we find it right here, means my crazy life. That's not specific to a particular gang, but we do see it primarily on Hispanic gangs. I think this could be a threat to a Sureños gang member. Anytime you mark out their graffiti, it is a direct threat to that gang member. So this is a threat to the community at this point. Sureño 13, S13. All right, Aryan Brotherhood and Aryan Nation. Tennessee is ate up with these people. And I'm going to use that term very loosely at this point because I do not agree with their ideology one bit. As far as I'm concerned, this is the lowest form of human life. Aryan Brotherhood is a prison gang. The Aryan Nation is a criminal street gang. Their religion is Christian identity, Scientology. Their clothing, they like Doc Martens shoes. Anybody know why they like Doc Martens? Or know what Doc Martens are?
Good boots.
Doc Martens are a very heavy shoe or boot with a very thick, heavy sole. Makes an incredible weapon. Symbols, they like anything that's World War II Nazi or the Odinic religious items. Iron crosses, swastikas, you name it. You'll see 14 or the 14 words in a lot of their graffiti and their documents. What this means is we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. 88. 8 is the 8th letter of the alphabet, or H. So together that stands for HH, or Heil Hitler. Aryan Nations is a far white supremacist religious organization. Richard Gert Butler founded the group in the 1970s as an arm of the Christian Identity Organization, Church of Jesus Christ Christian. As of December 2007, there were 2 main factions that claimed descent from Butler's group. Federal Bureau of Investigation has called Aryan Nations a terrorist threat, and the RAND Corporation has called it the first truly nationwide terrorist network in the U.S. Anybody know who the first terrorist organization in the U.S. was? Formally identified terrorist organization?
Congress?
Sons of Liberty.
Do what?
Ku Klux Klan?
KKK, it actually was. Yeah. The origin of the Aryan Nations is in the teachings of Wesley Swift, a significant figure in the early Christian identity movement. Swift combined British Israelism, extreme anti-Semitism, and political militancy. He founded his own church in California in the mid-1940s, and he had a daily radio broadcast in California during the 1950s and 1960s. In 1957, the name of his church was changed to Church of Jesus Christ Christian, which is used today by Aryan Nations churches. Aryan Brotherhood. History of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang goes back to 1967. Also known as the AB, the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang originated in the California prison system in San Quentin State Penitentiary. Originally, this gang was established to provide protection for white prison inmates from black and Hispanic groups and gangs. Some of the original members of the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang had been members in a 1950s gang known as the Bluebirds. Other names used were the Diamond Tooth Gang and the Nazi Gang. The philosophical premise of the Aryan Brotherhood and its members consists of a mixture of ideologies of white supremacy or neo-Nazism and German and Irish ancestry. It's one of our locals. Now, when they get this patch on their back or their shoulder, their arm, whatever the case may be, they have to earn everything that's in those quadrants. And if any of those items, particularly the lightning bolts, is colored in with red, that means they earned them by drawing blood in the name of the gang. Okay, this particular one was a lieutenant with the Aryan Nation, which is indicated by the crown on top of his patch. And then his patch number is in the middle of the patch. The bars in the top left quadrant indicate that he served time. And here's another good example. Now this is an example where he's got two of his quadrants are blooded or colored in with red. This indicates he's drawn blood at least twice for the gang. He's got his Iron Cross with his swastikas and his swastika there, or Iron Cross, swastikas, and lightning bolts. And on the back of his head, I guess he put it there so he could hide it when he grows his hair out, but he's got the Aryan Nation crest. He has 14 on his right forearm. Okay, that goes back to the 14 words. 88 on his left forearm. And on the backs of his arms, we never did figure this out, but he had Dirty South on the backs of both of his arms. Now the spider web, it has varying meanings for this particular inmate. That indicated prison time served. Just an example of some of the graffiti out of jail. Anarchist Day, you'll see that quite often with the white supremacy. Okay, this particular inmate, he was a lieutenant with the Aryan Nation. But if you'll notice, all of his quadrants are blacked out or blotted out. He actually got sentenced to a prison term, got shipped off to West Tennessee State Penitentiary, crossed another Aryan Nation lieutenant, and they beat him out of the gang, just about killed him for it. Okay, their activities inside of our jails. Just because they come to jail doesn't mean they stop their affiliations. And quite the opposite is the same. Just because we release them from jail doesn't mean they stop their gang affiliations when they go back to the streets. A lot of times they'll still be running the gangs while they're in jail over the telephones.
What you're about to say, Nate?
Do what?
Can they have cell phones?
No, absolutely not. If we catch them with a cell phone, that's a Class E felony.
What you're about to see may change your perception of what's happening behind bars.
Channel 4 I-Team investigation exposes shocking video and photograph of what's apparently
This is actually the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
inmates having a good time while your tax dollars pay for their food and housing. And perhaps the most stunning part of all of it is how the Channel 4 I-Team caught them. Here's our chief investigative reporter, Jeremy Finley.
Well, we uncovered all this simply by getting on Facebook. And you're probably thinking, well, you have to have a phone or a computer to get on Facebook, and inmates don't have either behind bars. That's the problem. These inmates are operating the pages, not someone on the outside. And what they're showing themselves doing is infuriating victims and has the state facing real questions. Prison's rough, right? You're in a cell all day, the food isn't good, little to no communication with the outside, right?
I believe I'm smoking better than everybody.
Well, welcome to Prison Life 2013. Drugs, smokes, mounds of snacks, cash, getting tattoos, the freedom to make music, even set things on fire, using forbidden technology to show it all off on Facebook.
This is the penitentiary. You hear me? Back there relaxing, you know what I'm talking about?
Relaxing, eating pizza, getting high, while you're paying for them to be here.
Anybody who sees those videos, they're going to be sickened by it, they're going to be angered by it.
And we're not talking about just a few inmates who figured out how to get on Facebook. Not 10, not 20, not 50. A Channel 4 I-Team investigation found more than 100 inmates in Tennessee prisons with Facebook pages. Their profile pictures taken inside their cells. Pages the inmates are operating from behind bars to communicate with family, friends, fellow gang members, even with inmates in other prisons.
See the BOS right there?
I guarantee you that when the commissioner sees this, there's going to be a reckoning, and there should be.
These are murderers, rapists, and other convicted criminals, and they appear to be having a pretty good time in prison.
I don't like it, but it's a problem that we face today, and it's something that we work hard on every day.
And once you see the videos, you'll see why crime victims advocates like Berna Wyatt are infuriated. What we've uncovered is like a highlight reel of audacity.
That's the world right there.
That's convicted murderer Rivera Peoples. Here's the contraband iPhone he uses to make the videos. Listen to his buddy talk about getting high behind bars.
I believe I'm smoking better than everybody.
Then he asked Peoples about how much money he's collected while he's been in prison.
How much money you got for it? 1,000?
I'm 1,000. I'm definitely 1,000.
And he's not alone. Here's a photo we found of an inmate holding $200, and another inmate shared the same photo on his Facebook page, just like you would share a picture you liked. But let's get back to the videos. Peoples and his criminal pals are back. This time, it's daytime in the prison yard, telling everyone on Facebook.
So I think everybody gets the point there. And this is not a problem that's just in Tennessee. This is a nationwide problem. And unfortunately, it's probably not a problem that's going to be cured anytime soon. As long as you have people involved in the corrections process, whether they be staff, volunteers, food service workers, you're going to have this problem. People are going to turn. If somebody's corrupt, they're going to stay corrupt even when they come to work for this type of facility. Security threat groups pose a serious threat inside correctional facilities in our communities. These gangs affiliate with drug trafficking organizations and maintain significant control and influence over the street gangs they are members or leaders of in their communities. They're involved in coercion, intimidation, stores, they run commissaries, 2-for-1s. The biggest one I've seen was a 10-for-1. They buy one item, they have to pay 10 back. That's some steep interest rates. Manipulation, primarily of staff. In fact, the gangs will love it when their members are able to manipulate staff. Fights, assaults, retaliations. Could be retaliation for past action. Could be retaliation for something that just happened in the jail. Contraband, if they can get their hands on contraband, they're going to do it. Gambling, initiations, and these could range from blessings in to physical assaults. Rituals, prayer circles, study groups. Gang business masked as something else, basically. Tattooing or branding, graffiti, vandalism, manufacturing weapons. That was manufactured by an inmate in our jail, off a piece of door trim. Well, when the officer brought it into my office, he was about as far as from me to the chief, and had all this covered up, held it up like this to me, so I couldn't see any of this. My first question was, who brought a commercial knife into my jail? So that's what it looked like at a distance. That'll kill an officer in a heartbeat. Just an example of some of the contraband we found, tattooing materials. Aryan Brotherhood comprises less than 1/10 of 1% of the prison population in California, but they're responsible for 80% of California prison homicides. Prisons and jails are excellent recruiting tools for gangs. The persons incarcerated are already angry at the officers, the system, their families and friends, anyone they can place blame on other than themselves for losing their freedom. This makes them one of the most at-risk groups for gang recruitment. Just some examples of our graffiti. We got a video here. I want to do the last thing I do here. And the reason I'm showing this video is because it was filmed in Gallatin and North Nashville. Probably half the people you see in this video we've seen in our jail. And it was posted on YouTube.
Big face breakfast. You fucking with the best.
And this is probably a 4th or 5th generation copy of this video that I've got. This was actually a commercially produced video. produced with high quality equipment. There's some money in that video. I used to live on the north side of Gallatin. That particular car, I used to see it go up and down my street all the time. I've got gang officers, when we sat and watched this video, I had to laugh because every time they saw a face pop up, they're throwing a name out there for the face. So we know these guys. And they're posting this stuff freely on YouTube. That was all one gang.
It was all one thing. Yeah.
That was actually, I believe, if I remember right, all those guys were Bloods.
Okay, because I thought blue was one thing and red was something else.
It can be. And typically it is.
Okay.
But in this case, what they're trying to do is they're trying to mask their gang affiliation by wearing rival gangs colors.
Oh, okay.
So, and if I let the whole video play, there's a couple of points where you'll see Metro police cars and Gallatin police cars actually sitting there watching them while they're filming. And they're filming the officers watching them. So, yes, sir.
Are there areas, I've been told this, I don't know if it's true or not, that police won't go in because you got so many gang people that live there that you say they're outnumbered?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe Nashville, but nothing that I'm aware of in Sumner County. And honestly, I was in California. There were places where we would not go if we were by ourselves. If we got a call in there, we'd go in 3 or 4 cars deep. But there was no place we wouldn't go. And I'm sure Sumner County is the same way.
I'm sure there's places that you shouldn't go by yourself.
Right. Yeah.
I guess the first game, similar, I can remember saying back in like the late 80s, early 90s in Gallatin at a school, was the burnt 8 with the can.
Oh, Zone 8.
Zone 8.
Yeah. We still have some of them floating around.
Are they still around?
We still have a few of those floating around, but they've migrated to other gangs now. There's very few of them left that really claims.
I just remember seeing the guys coming to school, you know, with that burnt in their arm, and you're just like, ooh. Yeah, with the soda can, I guess, or a beer can, I guess they used to burn that in there.
That gang up in Chilton, Wisconsin, they showed, Chilton, Wisconsin's about the size of
Portland?
Yeah, about the size of Portland.
Yes, sir.
3 to 1.
Where's all the gang bosses at?
Well,
somebody's got to be ramrodding these guys.
they're in various places. I mean, we've got some up in jail, we've got some up in state prison, but there's a lot of them running the streets still.
You know who they are?
They have to commit a crime before they can be locked up, though. They have to be proven or have enough evidence to link them to that crime before they can be arrested. So most of these leaders will distance themselves from that. They will try to shield themselves from that. They have their underlings do that, so they get arrested. Pretty much, yeah. Yes, sir.
There's so many gangs that want the color blue and they get into it. How do they know they're shooting?
Sometimes they don't. And that's a fact that's been proven that more gang members are killed by their own than by anybody else, including law enforcement. Yes, ma'am.
Do they tend to stay away from normal people?
Yeah.
I mean, are we normally safe in our own homes? No.
You're safe in your own homes, yes. These people really don't care about y'all, honestly.
Okay.
Most home invasions, 80% of home invasions are drug related. So unless you're dealing dope out of your house, you're pretty safe usually.
You actually probably live in one of the safest communities in the state. You have a great law enforcement presence in Sumner County, probably in the neighborhood of, this is a guess, I don't know the exact number, but 400 plus law enforcement officers in your area. So that's good. And we stay on top of crime. We work hard. We prosecute it as hard as we can. We have great district attorney's office, and they stand with us on any crime that we can bring to them that we can get the evidence for. So, and that's countywide. That's every law enforcement agency here. So it's a very safe place to live.
Well, I'll tell you, I lived in one of the most gang-ridden parts of Gallatin for 4 years. Now, it's not a place I would live if I had my family at the time. I was single, just me and my dog, and I never once had a problem there.
Yeah, I grew up like that. I grew up in a high school where you had your clear backpack.
I'm a corrections officer, yeah.
And we never.
But on the other side of that, I know most of these guys. I've dealt with them for 9 years in the jail. I like to think I've got the respect for most of them. Maybe it's just they fear that I'm going to catch them doing something stupid. But most of them don't mess with me very often. Very rarely. But you have to work for that. Yes, ma'am.
With your knowledge of gangs and knowing where they are and how they operate and what their symbols are, do you work with any local agencies to prevent or to help reduce the number of young people going into the
I think, don't we have some SROs that are great trained, Chief?
We do, and again, there's so much going on out there that, you know, it's hard for like one person. I mean, he is our specialist, and we do loan him out frequently. You've taught for Gallatin?
I haven't taught for Gallatin. I've taught for Rutherford County. I've taught for Tennessee Corrections Institute, Gang Investigators Association, PSI Probation.
We try to loan him out to anybody that wants him, you know, for this type of education. And that's about all we can do on that part, is loan them to them to get them educated so they're aware of it, so they're looking for it. Probably the biggest thing that's going to help us for young people is the SRO program. And that's a good question to ask Lieutenant Hurst when he gives you his presentation. They have a great program, and they're really trying to work to be not just police in schools, which is what they are, but they're trying to be mentors and help these young people realize that we're here to help you. We're here to help you grow up and become good, honorable citizens. And that's a great program.
I'm
And that's,
not promoting the Aryan Brotherhood, but I mean, Hitler said, and it's true, give me your children and I'll give you a nation. So
That's true.
That's right.
if we could,
And then that's kind of the premise these gangs work on.
Yeah.
The younger they can get them in and get them indoctrinated into their gang ideology, the better off they are.
That's why, like, where I come from, not here, but our high school, they had uniforms because it would discourage people from wearing color. You had to have clear backpacks so you could see everyone went through a metal detector coming in, and this was 20 years ago. This is Massachusetts.
Okay.
But yeah, it was Latin Kane, which is a bigger problem, but like, that's how bad it got, that in schools, they had to implement those policies to kind of keep.
Well, I mean, even as an officer,
new, but it was better.
even as an officer in California, almost 30 years ago, I worked as a side job as an armed private security officer in a public high school.
Yeah, that's
So,
how it was for. I mean, you walk through metal detectors and you had to put your backpack down. It was. I can only imagine what it's like now. To be honest.
how long has this been?
You're moving back, you'll
Now
find
moving
out.
back, I'll find
How
out
long
where.
has this been in this area?
No, we're not.
Years. Years.
Gangs, Sumner County.
how long ago were you in high school?
I mean, that would have been, you know, mid to late 80s is when I started, you know, like, why's that guy got a burnt 8 on? You know, didn't really know what it was until I asked, and they're like, oh, that's zone 8, you know. And, so that's been 20 some odd years ago.
We're trying to hide that age.
Okay, any other questions?
Are there any schools that are worse than others? Like
Honestly, I don't know about the schools. I deal more with the jail. I mean, I deal strictly with the jail. Now, I do drive around and see, you know, look at graffiti. I look for graffiti to photograph. I carry a 35mm or a DSLR on my truck all the time. So if I see something, I can pull over real quick, take a quick shot of it. And I use that for training our officers. Areas where I see the most graffiti, north side of Gallatin. Or over behind the hospital in Gallatin. Hendersonville, very, very little. But Gallatin's got about the worst problem that I know of.
So is the gang task force sheriff or police? Who polices the gang investigation side? Is that
Whoever gets a call that pertains to that criminal activity.
Okay.
That'd be it.
Whoever gets
Gallatin
involved
probably
with it.
really does more than anybody. Would be my guess. Gallatin Police Department.
Try to.
Try to, because that's in
Keep
their
up.
area.
Gotcha.
The areas he's talking about are strictly inside
In the city.
City of Gallatin.
And we deal real closely with Gallatin PD, with their detectives and gang officers, and exchanging that information when we have it as well.
So if there was a Castaic Springs street thugs, then y'all would be
Yeah,
out there in the farm. In the
Pretty safe out there.
the farm boys.
Westmoreland had to.
Well, that's right.